What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, Jared's Books. I'm Jared, and I have a real treat for a lot of you today, especially enjoying those of you that enjoy nonfiction, cryptozoology, conspiracy, and that kind of thing. Last night, I finished reading Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods. So it was a lengthy read. It was only 500 pages before the actual work cited, but it was a difficult read to say the least. I want to go into some of the points of the book, the good and the bad, before I start giving my opinion on it. So Graham Hancock has become very well known, mainly through the podcasting circuit. For his interesting theory that there was a global, ancient, highly civilized, technologically advanced civilization during the Ice Age, possibly before the Ice Age, that ended in a great cataclysm after the Ice Age that wiped that civilization out. He thinks that this one civilization possibly lent down all myths, religions, and things like that. Like it's all kind of the same. It all comes from one thing. Like all civilizations kind of come from this one giant hierarchy. So that's the basis of it. And like I mentioned, he's very popular now on the podcasting circuit, and mainly from his personal friendship that he has with Joe Rogan. So Joe Rogan read the book, found it very interesting, has Graham Hancock on, and like everybody that goes on his podcast ends up experiencing a global notoriety and popularity. So Graham Hancock's hypothesis, for one, isn't his hypothesis. It's the Hapgood hypothesis from 1960. And he does mention that in the book, that he's kind of just picking up the research of this hypothesis, but he really kind of takes credit for it in the public eye. So like he never really mentions it anywhere else. I kind of have a little bit of an issue with that. You need to give credit where credit's due, especially if it's not your work. His work is all based off of the Hapgood hypothesis. So it's saying that there was, possibly a global cataclysm around 10,500 years ago that wiped out this great civilization. And there are some really interesting points. And I'd also like to point out, like, I'm a big fan of this kind of conspiracy or theory. I find it really interesting. So that's what led me to read the book. I've also, me and my wife are always watching tons of videos on this kind of stuff and ancient aliens and things like that. So it's always very appealing. He does make some very good points in the book. He has a way of picking and choosing historical data that fits his narrative, which is both a plus and a negative. He's able to get these, he's able to put these comparisons together, which, to give you an idea of some, there's the global flood is a event that's mentioned in hundreds of different civilizations all across the world. There was a global flood of some kind, and he relates it back to the thawing of the glaciers from the Ice Age and the rapid deglaciation, which would make total sense. So, I mean, I have no doubt that that's probably where that came from. That makes complete sense. But then he has some pretty outlandish stuff in there. Like, he believes that all of the myths about a great flood and Noah and things like that, like, because there's always like a guy with an ark and all of the civilization stories. He believes that some of these are coded messages that contain numbers that allowed them to discover those numbers and somehow put that together to astronomically track the zodiac signs I don't think so. It seems a little far out. Uh, the beginning of the book was good. I would say so. We got 500 pages here, and I would say only 200 of it are are really worth a read. Um, and not because of the hypothesis. Like I find it very interesting. I think it's very plausible that some of this stuff did happen. But he went out of his way to make this book as difficult as possible to read. I'm not just saying that. I, I mean, I think I have a strong vocabulary. I think I'm pretty well spoken and well read. And I promise you, sat down with a thesaurus and found a way to find as many difficult $10,000 words as he could to put into this book. This book was excruciating to read. This was It was mind-numbingly boring for a topic that I find so interesting. And it's solely due to his writing. So, if you can't tell by my overall tone already, like I really like the hypothesis, I really like some of the data, I really just don't like Graham Hancock. Sorry, especially after reading the book. After reading the book and getting a feel for his writing style, and then I've watched so many different podcasts with him on it before, and because I found all of his stuff very interesting, it's what led me to the book. So I really like the hypothesis. The book is just terrible. Um, like I said, there's the first 100 pages were good. It points out some really good theories on some things that have to do with the Piri-Reis map. This is very interesting stuff. I really enjoyed that. It also talks about the comparisons in the Andes Mountains to the civilizations in like the Panamanian Peninsula or the Yucatan Peninsula. That's what it is. Sorry. And Mexico. It points out really good comparisons on how those two civilizations are very similar, how some of the ancient artifacts like Machu Picchu, Teotihuacan, Pumapunku, that all these things were stated to have existed long before those civilizations even got there. It's really cool stuff. Really enjoyed it. And then he goes on for 300 pages on this like number quest of how ancient civilizations must have had a working concept of pi. Um, no, I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. There's very familiar with pi, with what pi is. Those of you that aren't, like, it's a way to find like the radius of like any like circle and things like that. It's no. And he's saying that like their understanding of it was passed down through legends from one civilization that gave them not only pi, but also gave them a way to track precession, which is like the clock motion of the zodiac symbols in the sky to be able to come up with calendars, astrology, mathematics, and all that. I'm not buying it. And not only am I not buying it, but the way that he worded it, this is not hyperbole, I am not exaggerating. It is 300 pages of literally nothing but number breakdowns on how this and this and this compared to this. Like, so I believe that if you're looking for something, you can find it in just about anything. It's like how they do now with sports. They're always coming up with some stupid new stat. Like, this is the first time that Patrick Mahomes threw a touchdown with his left foot forward instead of his back foot forward. And this morning he tied his shoelaces on his right foot before his left foot. That's the first time it's ever happened. That is a complete BS stat. It's something that's being made up to make it sound better than it really is. And that's what Graham Hancock does in this book. Some of these numbers that he thinks appear in these legends, if they don't appear, he starts actually throwing out well, what if you divided it by 2 instead of by 3? And then you get this, like, no, That's not the way it works. What if the sky was purple instead of blue? It's not. It's complete BS. The last, I would say, 200 pages. So I'd say 100 pages are really good. About 200, 250 pages are just absolutely, mind-numbingly boring. It was painful to read. It was painful. And then all the way through to the last 500, it starts going into ancient Egypt. There's some very interesting material in here on the history of the pyramids. I found that very interesting. It was really cool. It seemed like he may have changed his writing style too towards the end. It became more biographical, I guess, like with him going to the pyramids and what he saw. It made it so much easier to read. And I like math a lot. And that the number thing in the bulk of this book was, I don't even know if I'm going to be the same after reading it. It was just terrible. So the Egypt thing was really cool. I would recommend this book. I still would, if you're very interested in some of the topics about an ancient global civilization, that kind of thing. If you want to learn more about it and get a little bit more in detail, I would say you should really take everything in this book with a grain of salt, because Graham Hancock is notorious for picking and choosing data points to match his narrative that go against already proven theories by archaeologists and Egyptologists. So on the shoe on the other foot, he's saying, well, why are they only looking at it this way? Well, that's because he's purposely finding and sometimes elaborating and making things up to fit his narrative. And I'm not opposed to it. Like, I'm completely looking at this objectively because I find this stuff very interesting. I find the theory very interesting. It's the way he presents his argument and his data that suck. It just sucks. It's not good. So would I recommend this book? Yeah, I would, if you want to learn more, or if you want to like prove me wrong, or have a discussion on it. I would recommend it. Just be prepared for it's a terrible read. On a scale of, I rate everything on a scale of 1 to 5. I would give this a 0.5. It wasn't good. It's not a good way of presenting material. And some people might say, well, you're just not a fan of nonfiction. That's really not true. Chaos, the Manson book was really good. UAPs and the Nuclear Puzzle was really good. Another one that I'm going to do a review on. Polska, what is her name here? Here's another good one for you guys. Encounters by D.W. Pasulka. She was really good. She also has another book out there called American Cosmic that I'm looking to read. That one was really good. Starry Messenger by Neil deGrasse Tyson was really good. A lot of Jordan Peterson stuff. So it's not that I don't like nonfiction. It's just that this sucked. I mean, am I a little chapped about it? I'm pretty chapped about it because it takes me about 2 weeks to go through a book, and that's when I'm really into it. And I was having to force myself to read these pages. So Graham Hancock, 0.5, Fingerprints of the Gods. Check it out. I would read the first 100, 150 pages, and then I would skip to the last maybe 200 pages. If you're really looking for the basis of the hypothesis, that's where it's at in this book. The in-between is number, mumbo, jumbo, filler, fabricated stats. Hands down. So that's where we're at. I didn't like it. Not one bit. Curious to hear what you guys think about it. And I'm sure I will, especially on a book like this, because he's a pretty polarizing figure with some pretty polarizing arguments. But I think he's just gaining notoriety from a personal friendship with Joe Rogan, who I also like, and like who he has on the podcast. So it's not that I don't like that show or anything. It's just call a spade a spade. Is what it is. This guy would be completely discredited if it wasn't for that relationship. But he has it, so is what it is. Point 5, recommend it if you want to waste a lot of time. As always, thanks for stopping by. I'm going to try to do, I'm curious, I don't really know what to read next. I was thinking about the book Between Two Fires, kind of like a fantasy thing. Sounds pretty cool. I was also interested in reading The Man Who Killed JFK, the book that makes the case by Roger Stone that LBJ was responsible for the assassination. That's another nonfiction. See, it's not that I just don't like nonfiction. I just don't like shitty writing. So I was thinking about reading that one. I'm a huge John Steinbeck fan. He's my favorite author of all time. I would say John Steinbeck, then Stephen King. I've read all John Steinbeck's novels at least 3 times, every single one of them. And I've been wanting to read To a God Unknown again. It's one of my favorites, so I ordered it last night. It'll be here tomorrow. I'll probably start reading that for the 4th time, and I'll do a book review on it. His books are John Steinbeck's writings, absolutely incredible. So if you really want a good book, check any of his out, and save yourself 2 weeks and 500 pages of nonsense. So give me a like, give me a comment, give me a subscribe. I would say we sit down and push play and don't really map anything out, but I mapped a little bit about this one out before I sat down and did the video, just because it's just so polarizing of an argument that I wanted to have some kind of basis to stand on. But I did like a lot of it, so if you want to talk more about it, hit me in the comments. Subscribe, follow along for more like this. And it was a little bit of a tangent and a soapbox on this one, but duly noted. Give credit where credit's due. And look forward to hearing from you guys. As always, thanks for stopping by. Keep reading. Talk soon.